While Disney's history with the Star Wars brand has seen its fair share of ups and downs, there is likely no bigger blemish on their record than the short-lived Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, a Star Wars-themed hotel that looked to offer guests an immersive two-night stay to live out their Star Wars story inside a ship called the Halcyon. Unfortunately, once fans saw the price of admission, their perception of the hotel quickly turned sour, and despite some fans enjoying it, the overall experience was poorly received by the general public. It closed its doors permanently after only 18 months of operation. Spotlight on the hotel has resurfaced following YouTuber Jenny Nicholson's detailed 4-hour video titled The Spectacular Failure of the Star Wars Hotel. The video went into great detail about the troubled history of the hotel as well as her own personal experience of the two-night stay. It has become an online sensation and is the most people have talked about the hotel in over a year. While Disney might be done with the hotel, there is one way they can at least salvage part of it and help semi-rehabilitate its image in terms of a world-building setup. The Halcyon should appear in the Disney Plus series, particularly the Acolyte. The Halcyon was the in-universe name of the Star Wars-themed hotel within the wider franchise, where the various characters in the story were supposedly taking place. The ship was described as 13 decks, with decks 4, 5, 6, and 7 being the ones available to the guests who stayed at the hotel, with rooms on decks 4, 5, and 7. It was a luxury star cruiser that featured a lounge, a house band, and many other elements one would expect on a cruise ship, but it was done with a Star Wars theme. The ship is reportedly close to 300 years old and still operating. The Halcyon used High Republic architecture, a way for Disney Imagineers to create a luxury Star Wars hotel experience, even though most of the Star Wars films' popular aesthetics, as laid out in the original trilogy, are often grimy, dirty, and the opposite of luxurious. The High Republic itself was a publishing initiative for Star Wars that explored the time frame before The Phantom Menace, which began publication in 2021, 1 year before Galactic Star Cruiser opened. Still, due to the long development time of the hotel, it was likely done in tandem with it. The story on the Halcyon was that the crew was celebrating their 275th anniversary trip. Given that the story takes place during the year between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, that means that the ship was operating during the era of the High Republic, the same era that the Acolyte will be taking place. In fact, within the story told on the ship, part of the reason it has a Jedi training room, a way for guests to do a lightsaber activity, is that during the High Republic, Jedi Master Nibasek and her Wookiee Padawan Buri saved the ship from space pirates known as the Nil, and the ship has kept a room honoring the Jedi ever since, even after the Jedi were believed to be wiped out by Order 66. How could the Halcyon appear in the Acolyte, with the Acolyte being Star Wars' first live-action introduction into the High Republic era? Featuring Halcyon in some form would make sense. The Acolyte takes place about 100 years before the events of The Phantom Menace, after the ship's maiden voyage to the planet of Batuu, the in-universe name for the Star Wars-themed land at Disney parks named Star Wars, Galaxy's Edge, but could be a relatively new ship. While described as a murder mystery, the Acolyte could feature a scene set on the ship or even an entire episode. After all, a locked, enclosed space served murder mystery writer Agatha Christie very well, be it a train, Murder on the Orient Express, or a cruise ship, Death on the Nile. Right now, the Acolyte looks to be telling a self-contained story, not pulling from any pre-existing characters from the franchise apart from Vernestra Rue, a character who originally appeared in the High Republic book. This is certainly a good thing, as it allows them to forge their own path and shows they are not relying on fan service or easy cameos to win over audiences, which is what many modern Star Wars have been accused of. Yet, including the Halcyon would be an excellent way to rework a more controversial and potentially soon-to-be-forgotten part of Star Wars lore and give it a better reputation than an expensive failed hotel. With the Halcyon being a High Republic ship, it showing up in the High Republic set series, like the Acolyte, makes sense. The Halcyon could appear in other Star Wars projects. There is the likely chance that, due to the Acolyte having finished filming before the hotel closed, it is unlikely the Halcyon ship will appear in the series despite the obvious High Republic connections. Yet that does not mean that the ship couldn't appear in other Star Wars projects. Before the hotel opened, Disney and Lucasfilm certainly did try to advertise the hotel by featuring it in a number of Star Wars-themed comics and books, including being the location of Han Solo and Princess Leia's honeymoon in the 2022 book Star Wars, The Princess and the Scoundrel. Now that the hotel is closed, incorporating the Halcyon into a Star Wars story feels less like corporate synergy and more like using a cool, underused location in a story. The Mandalorian and Grogu is set to be released in theaters in 2026, and having a scene set on the Halcyon ship could provide a fun setting for the film. Production could even take advantage of the fact that the hotel set design already exists and is unoccupied. There is also the upcoming movie focused on Daisy Ridley's Rey. In the story's canon, Rey did a mission on the Galactic Star Cruiser before the events of The Rise of Skywalker. With her film set years in the future, Rey could reference the events of the hotel storyline, and fans could see what happens to the Halcyon afterward. Not being bound by the canon anymore also raises the tension, as the Halcyon might be on its final voyage, giving the filmmaking side of Lucasfilm to give the ship and the hotel a better conclusion than Disney just closing it. With the High Republic origins of the Halcyon, Disney can revisit their former galactic-themed hotel at any point in the Star Wars canon in stories set during the Clone Wars, the Age of the Empire, the New Republic, or the Rise of the First Order. Star Wars loves taking old elements from its past and incorporating them into the canon, as seen with all the parts of the Star Wars holiday special that have been adapted in The Mandalorian. Right now, the legacy of Star Wars, the Galactic Star Cruiser, the Halcyon, or if you want to call it the Star Wars Hotel, is that of failure. It was a mighty bit of hubris on the Walt Disney Company's part to try and charge about $4,800 for a guest to have a two-night stay while failing to communicate exactly what the hotel was and being unable to deliver on the promise. Yet, in those failed attempts, they created an exciting piece of Star Wars lore that might be better explored in other Star Wars media, such as films, television series, and comic books, as a piece of connective tissue. There is hope that it will show up in the Acolyte. If not, then in some other future Star Wars adventure. Check out the trailer for The Acolyte below. The Acolyte is streaming on Disney Plus on June 4, 2024.